All right, what's up, guys? My name's Joseph Bramer, and I'm here to teach you guys about sound. There's no one here today, so I'll just be doing this direct to camera. So, oh God, where to start? All right, we're gonna start with the basics, which is basically what kind of settings you're gonna use on your mixer as the first part. Now, sound mixer, we have 5 or 6 of those variations in the cage, Tascam, Zoom, sound devices, different name brands. The principle for those is pretty much the same across the board in terms of how you set it up and how you record with it, with a few variations here and there. Now, the mixer of my choice is either the Zoom or the sound devices, but you got to kind of work your way up to that. So let's see, which one do you think is a good one just across the board bass? Do you think 680 or?
H4n is a good place to start.
Oh my God, you're right. Did we grab an H4n?
If you didn't, I've got one over here.
Oh, it's right here. Cool. All right. So anybody that's done this program recently, at least, we got these Zoom H4n Pros, which is basically the equivalent of what the Tascam DR100 Mark IIs were. Little hand recorder, not a lot of features, but it's got the gain knob, it's got the headphone volume, it's got 2 little microphones right here, which you can point and record with. And it's basically your bass thing to start with. So every mixer is going to kind of follow this basic workflow, which is you turn it on, you go into the menus, you format your SD card, you check your record settings, and then after that you do level setting and testing everything, and then you record from there. Now there's a few variations in that depending on what kind of quality mixer you have, because there are different settings. But the biggest thing about these mixers is that you have to, the biggest thing about these mixers, totally lost my train of thought. This is epic. Let's see. Oh yeah, the biggest thing about the mixers is you just got to know the menus. They all pretty much work the same. You just got to come in and familiarize yourself with the menus, because if you don't, then you won't know how to get anything set up. Otherwise, they're all pretty much straightforward. So I guess we'll start with this little thing, a little Zoom. I don't know how well that's going to show up on camera, but.
Are you able to turn the screen brightness down?
Yeah, I'll do that in a minute.
See if that helps.
Okay, so first thing you're going to do with this one is there's a little power button. I don't know how to focus this thing.
It's got a minimum focus distance, so.
It's focused when I was holding it here.
Close. Pull it back. Yeah, that's good.
So right here, there's a power switch. All you do is just push that down.
Hold it.
Maybe it'll turn on. Maybe it won't.
Yeah,
there it is. So it says no card. Do we have SD cards? Can you grab me
I have
one?
one in the cage.
Cool. So it turns on. You have your menu button on the side right here. Just not that one. This one right here. It says menu. Pretty straightforward. So you press that, and then it brings up these menus right here. And you scroll through them using this headphone knob on the side here. Sorry, that's your gain knob.
I'm going to tell them how big of a card they should use.
You can use a card anywhere from 8 gigabytes to 32 gigabytes. I think these Zooms have a max of 16 or 32. The bigger the card, the longer it takes to format. So, but generally 8 to 16 is your go-to range. So, oh boy, here's the fun part.
I'll play devil's advocate. What if I put a 64 in there and it's not working?
Then take it out and try a different one.
Okay.
SD card slots on the side here, right underneath the record level button right here. Or, yeah, buttons. Click it in. And then after that, all you do is, oh my God, focus on this thing is, does this have an autofocus?
It does. I wish I could turn it off, but.
Okay. So you scroll all the way down to SD card here, not system, unfreaking believable. To go back in the menus, all you do is hit menu. So you scroll down to SD card, click in on this wheel up here, and then you go to format. Are you sure? Yes. And then it's going to take like 5 minutes to format the card. So
It's frozen.
And the thing with the Zooms especially is they can take a long time to format their cards, especially this model. Most of the other mixers won't take this long, but if it's taking anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, don't be worried about it. Okay, so you turned on the mixer, you went and formatted your SD card. Next thing you do is go back into the menu and you go to your record setting. And the two big record settings you want to know about are bit depth and sample rate. Now, I'm not going to get into the technical part of that because that's Bateman's job in his class. But basically, the bit depths that we're going to be working with are 24 and 32, depending on the mixer. And the sample rate is going to be either 48 kilohertz or anything higher than that. But you always want to be either 24 or 32, generally 24 on most of our lower end mixers. And then you want to match that sample rate to 48. And so you just click in on record format for this one at least, and it has a bunch of different options. The maximum this can go to is 24 at 96 kilohertz. Ignore the MP3 at kilobytes per second. That's stupid and dumb and nobody likes it. 24 at 96 kilohertz is an option, but the more kilohertz you add in, the higher sample rate, the bigger the file size, and then the less other settings like pre-roll you can do. So 48 is the rule of thumb. I like to record in 96 because I'm a devilish boy. But auto record is just something if you hook up to another mixer or if you hook up to a camera, then you can record it that way. Pre-record is nice because you can turn it on and it'll record however many seconds before you hit the record button. This one you can't change it, but other ones you can. You can change your file name. So you could technically, well, on this one you can only do date, but on other ones you can actually name your file. So like scene 1A, take 1, etc. So make sure your record settings are good. Again, turn it on, format the SD card, go in and get your bit depth and your sample rate set. And then after that, you can scroll through and mess with everything else if need be. So you're going to have input settings on every mixer. And on this one, you have low cut, you have your limiter, you have your monitor, and you have your 1 and 2 link. So your low cut, oh, and then the rest of that stuff, which I'll go over in a sec. So your low cut filter is basically, or also known as a high pass filter. It cuts out frequencies underneath around 200 hertz, depending on the mixer. And that can help with highway noise inside a house or a computer fan going. It doesn't, a refrigerator sometimes. It doesn't work all the time. And it's not a miracle worker, but it can help depending on what's going on. And again, you just click in here and then you can turn it on for the mic or the input, whatever. So yeah, it scrolls through and you can go up to 220 on this one. And the input is basically the same thing. When it says mic versus input there, it's talking about these mics versus the actual inputs on the bottom of the mixer. So that's what that means. With this thing, the limiter is basically when you get to a certain point, a limiter is supposed to turn on. So when you're recording with a mixer, they have a certain level that they can handle in terms of volume, basically. And if it goes over that, then the sound distorts, clips, and is unusable, and it sounds very just crappy. You'll know when you do it. What a limiter does is when the sound is approaching the threshold where it's about to start distorting, there's basically a cap put on it that kind of, let's see, oh God. So here's your threshold and the sound's coming up and then it kind of caps it here and just levels it out and lowers it. And it can sound distorted at times, but it's much better than not using the limiter. Again, if you're good with getting your level set, then it's not the biggest deal in the world. And I'll go over it a bit more with a mixer that actually can handle that. But that's what that is. It basically caps off the sound so it doesn't distort and break completely. Monitor is not important. 1-2 link basically means you can link what these two channels do together. On this mixer, I believe it's a mono. Sets it to a mono track, more so than linking the actual channels together, depending on what's going on. I'm not sure. I'm used to working with the bigger mixers, but again, not the most important. I would leave 1-2 link on just because it basically sets it so on the main menu here, the LNR channels are actually matching each other rather than recording in stereo. On that note, never record audio or dialogue in stereo. Always record it in mono. The only thing you're going to record in stereo is ambience, and that's something you'll record with 2 separate microphones. If you're recording in stereo, it's a pain in the ass to fix. Don't do it. Just do it in mono. You probably learned this in LGS and in Bateman's class. And if you haven't taken that yet, just remember mono, record everything in mono if you're unsure. Mono versus stereo, again, pretty straightforward. Stereo is the left and right track are separated. So if something's louder on the left side than it is on the right side, it will show that here. Mono matches the tracks together, so it all picks up and is at the same level for both.
Joe, you want to explain why we don't record in stereo from a post-production standpoint?
I mean, if you're recording in stereo and something's off balance, then you'll hear it in just your right ear rather than your left or equally. And it just sucks because it doesn't sound good. You want the dialogue to sound like it's balanced and even and natural. And if it's coming from the left side, more so than the right side, then it doesn't sound good and it's a pain in the ass to fix. So do it properly the first time and you're good. It's all good. Fun times. So with this mixer specifically, there's the input buttons on the side here, and it's hard to see, but this top one right here says mic, and they say 1 and 2. Mic, when you click on this, is setting these mics to be recording. And when you hit 1 and 2, it means these inputs are recording. So with this mixer, there's 2 steps. You hit the button and it starts blinking. That means it's monitoring levels right now. And you can see like the bar is matched up and it's recording at about -6. If you press it again, then you'll actually start recording. And you can see it up there. There's a little light up there and the dot on the side there. And so to stop recording, you just hit the stop button and it takes a second and then it's done recording. Now, to actually set your levels, there's a thing on the side here called record level. And you just bring that up or down depending on how loud the person is talking. And as you can see, as I bring it down, it's lowering it down to about -12. You want to record at about -12. That's the given one. It's because it gives you headroom in case somebody's screaming or there's a bit of dynamic stuff going on. And it's also the most like generally loudest in terms of clean signal. That wasn't explained very well, but basically it's a good median between being too loud and too quiet, as well as giving you enough headroom. So if someone starts shouting, then you can recover that without having to bring it down. Now, again, record level is not to be confused with your headphone volume, which is what this is here. 2 totally separate things. If you have your headphone volume, that's just what's being sent into your headphones that you can listen to. If you have that volume up and it sounds good to you, but your record volume is totally down, then it's going to not like work out in post. You won't have an actual loud recording, even though it sounded loud while you were recording it. I've made that mistake before. But, oh my God, there's somebody here. This is insane. What's up, my dude? Oh, he's showing. All right. So again, headphone volume, set that, but always make sure that your levels are kind of set where you want them, which is at -12. That's pretty much the basics for this little thing. Again, turn it on, format your SD card, check your record settings. And then after that, you set your levels, you monitor everything, and then you start recording after that. You're trying to hit -12. There's another thing in here. Well, there's a few other things, which are stuff that I have not gone over with this one in a while. So there's a few other things called phantom power, which back into the menus actually real quick. If you go to record, then you can see all that. But after you go to record, if you go up to input, you scroll down past 1, 2 link. You have your level auto, which is not important, mono mix, which is on. But right here it says phantom power, and there are microphones that need phantom power to run. Now, most likely you will not be running a phantom powered microphone off of this little mixer. The microphones that we have, bar 4 of them, run off of phantom power that are battery based, which are batteries inside the microphone. We have 4 mics specifically that need phantom power from a mixer, which is called this thing. It's called our Deity S mic. Where's the thing? Right here. But most likely you will not be using this with this because this is very basic and this we only have 4 of and they go with the higher end mixers. So phantom power is another thing to keep in mind. Generally, you don't need to keep it on. Again, right here, you can go and turn it off, or you can just put it on 24 like an idiot. So you go to menu, you can back out. That's pretty much all the big things for this one. To go back and listen to something, you just go to folder, and then you can go through the folder, and then you can also go to file, and right in the file menu there, you can see what you just recorded. And so you can select it, you can rename it, but to listen to it, all you got to do is hit the play button on it. And then
if you press it again, then you will actually start recording. And
so the speaker quality is absolutely god awful on this thing. Again, you'll be using headphones, but just something to keep in mind. But for this one, that's pretty much it. Again, you got your on and off button here. You got your headphone volume on this side, your headphone plug-in. And then on this side, you have your record levels, your actual scroll wheel to get through the menus, and then your actual menu button and your SD card.
Hey, Joey.
What's up?
Which button is on the back of the battery door that's a pain in the butt?
Which button?
Stamina mode.
Oh, stamina mode? I'm pretty sure that's a battery saver, but I'm not sure.
So if I can't change my settings, what should I do?
Oh, turn off stamina mode, I
I
assume.
don't know how to turn off stamina mode.
How do you turn off?
Something I get asked about all the
Oh,
time.
it's right here. Okay. So if somehow this little switch gets flipped in here, just make sure it's off. Stamina mode just saves battery by, I guess, disabling a bunch of stuff. But all you do is just flip that off. And then you're good. It's that easy. I think that's everything with this one, right?
Should be. Runs on AA batteries. So
Oh, yeah.
you can bring them.
AA batteries, we do not provide them for you, so bring your own battery replacements right there.
What would you use the onboard microphones for?
So you would use the onboard mics on this if you're like doing a run and gun interview and you have nothing else, or you're just trying to point and get a sound. So if you're on set and you have this and you just want to record like a sync running or something along those lines, you could just point with it.
Cool.
But yeah. Oh, I hate this thing so much. All right, next thing is the Tascam DR680. And
Take that out of the case.
yeah, so up until recently, this was our biggest and technically best field recorder. It has, it's got 4 channels, 4 XLR channels, and then all of this stuff, which is archaic at this point. You have your SD card and battery power right here. You're generally going to run this off of AA batteries, which it does not last very long. But you have your DC in right there if you want to. Let's see if I can get this off without breaking something. So battery slot in here, we have no batteries for this.
How many batteries does it take, Joey?
It takes 8 freaking batteries. It's unbelievable. This thing eats batteries.
How long do you think it lasts?
Like 2 to 3 hours from my experience with it. It's not great. It's actually pretty terrible, but it's what we had for the longest time until recently. Do we have any batteries in here?
I do.
We gotta plug them in. So the menus to access this thing, half of them are on the front, but then half of them are also on the top, which is very not great because the bags that we have for this make it hard to access the top. But the power button is going to be on the top right here. Then there's all this stuff, which is your inputs. So when you have an input on a channel, you can change it between mic and line and sometimes some other ones, depending on the mixer. What that basically means is, excuse me, mic is, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's any microphone. It outputs a lower signal. A line signal is a stronger signal. And that's basically like an instrument or any output from these mixers is going to be a line signal. So say for instance, you plug in a guitar into the 1/4 inch jack there, you probably use a line signal for that. But if you plug in an XLR cable from a microphone into here, then you use a mic signal for that. Again, good rule of thumb, all microphones are a mic signal, and then all instruments are a line signal generally. I could be wrong, but not wrong about the mic part. Let me put some batteries in here real
You
quick.
can also use AC power.
True, yep. You can use the AC adapter that comes with this if you're inside, but if you're outside shooting, this is generally the best you get. It has been a hot second since I've used this thing. Okay, so again, you have your turn on button right here. You hold that down. This crappy little LCD screen turns on. It's so hard to get the angle right. So yeah. So again, the workflow is basically the same. You're going to hit the menu button right up here, and that'll bring you into the menus in here, and you basically use this knob here to scroll through. And what a pain in the ass. Again, I recommend coming in and going through this yourself because it's difficult to show the menus. And that's all a lot of this is just going through the menus. Okay, so if you look at the top left, you'll see that the writing in the black bar, oh my God, the autofocus on this is just terrible.
Back up a little bit.
Okay, so you see how it says record, general, auto record, MS mode. Those are different menus that you're scrolling through. You want to go down to the card menu, click in. We don't have a card in here.
You want to take it out of the explainer?
Can you get that for me?
Sure.
But again, you would just put that, execute, and then it'd format the card for you. And then again, the next thing is, thank you. Hold on. Okay, card's in there. So it'll, sometimes if the card isn't formatted to what the mixer usually uses, it'll bring up a format error and you can just format it that way. So it's going through doing that. Then after that, you just hit menu again. Then you're going to scroll down to good gracious, this is awfully difficult. Again, you have your format here, 24-bit, sample rate is 42, 48 kilohertz. This thing can technically record two versions of the same track at once. It's called dual recording. It's basically a backup track, but most likely you won't use it. File type, you'll set to mono. And then there's this thing, does a thing called arming a track. Now, arming a track basically means you're recording a track individually along with the left and right mix, which you will see. Get back to the menu in this thing. Oh my God, it's been years.
Saying like the main screen.
Yeah. Oh, it says home and display on the front. I'm genius. Okay. So you see those little, oh my goodness. This thing is nothing but pain. Those four little circles in the bottom left, when there's a circle underneath the track, that means it's armed. That means you're recording that track individually alongside the other ones individually. So you have a boom mic and two lavs, for instance. The boom mic will be recorded to its own track, and the lavs will each have their own track as well as being mixed to a left and right channel, if that's set up, which is what that is right there, where that little dash is, that little gap. That would be where the LNR, again, it says it right there. Doesn't look like LNR is enabled on this one, but again, record settings are generally where you're going to do everything. Mix, same take. So yeah, track right here is where you'd actually set your arming tracks, which is a pain because then you got to use the buttons on top, I believe, maybe. How do I work you again? This thing is so infuriatingly bad. We got a bunch of new stuff that is just much easier to work with. Okay, anyway, moving on. Trial and error. People are smart. They'll figure it out.
Joey, would it be easier if I moved the camera near the laptop?
Probably.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to balance everything. Genius. Oh my goodness.
Is that better?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
so. Okay. All right. Okay, where were we? So you can actually name the tracks in here, and you can name a take number as well. You just click in. You can scroll through it, user 1, user 2. Again, counterintuitive, and if you make a sound log, it's not super necessary, but it can be helpful. You have your level for auto record. You're probably not going to end up using auto record, but that's there. Again, the biggest thing to remember with these is just format your SD card, set your record settings, and then you're pretty much good to go. Especially with this one, just make sure that those tracks are armed like that.
If I want to change my gain on that mixer, how do I do that?
So if you want to change your gain, you got to go to record trim right here, and that'll bring up these menus. And then you scroll through each menu and you just click on these buttons right here. Just scroll through it. And all you do is adjust this knob. And record trim and gain are the same thing. Technically they're not. Gain is boosting, trim is trimming a signal, but they're in essence the same thing. If you want to change your actual record level.
Input gain.
I guess so. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, it's mix level, my bad. So basically when you change your mix level, that's going to affect only this left and right track here, which is the mix. So when you're recording, all you got to worry about is your record trim for your individual tracks. This is where you actually set the levels for your tracks as they're recording. Mix level is not important except for the final mix where they're all getting put together, which you will probably not use because you want the individual tracks. Mix pan is literally just panning the channels from left to right in your ears. So if you want to listen to channel 1 in your right ear, channel 2 in your left ear, that's how you do it. But yeah, record trim is going to be your go-to one. And then mix level is if, say, you have a bunch of instruments and you're live mixing a concert, that's when you use mix level for the final output to actually mix on the fly, which most people will not be doing.
No. Last thing, you want to show them the top and what all those little knobs do.
Okay. So I don't know if this has been run over yet, but you have your inputs, which are your line. It says line of mic. It went over line of mic. But if you're not getting a signal in through a channel, make sure that it's set to mic and not line. And then the other thing is it has a mic gain on the right here. Now I'm not sure why this is on here because it's just silly, but basically it's a stage of gain. So if it's too quiet and you're not hearing it loudly, you can turn it up and it'll boost it by like 20 decibels. That's pretty much all it does. So something to keep in mind, this mixer again is a real big pain in the ass and we bought them a while ago. Better than the Zooms, but again, very not intuitive in terms of how this thing works. There's this function button here. And you can repeat, you can pre-record, you can undo a take, I think. It's really hard to watch this. This is again where you set your limiters and your low cut. So like on the Zoom, that's the same things.
Where do you go for phantom power?
Where do you go for phantom power? That's a good question. I'm not sure. Oh, phantom power is right on the bottom. I'm an idiot. It's that switch right there. All you do is just flick that and it turns it on for channels 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6. Again, stupid design. This thing was probably the cheapest like 4-channel mixer that we could have gotten. And so they cut a lot of corners in terms of features, I guess. So the rest of the stuff in here, I'm happy to explain if people come in, but for the most part, you won't be using it. So again, either take a look at the manual or come in and ask questions, but
Last thing,
yeah.
show them the headphone jack and if that's missing.
Okay, this headphone jack is stupid as shit and none of the other mixers have this. It is a 1/4-inch jack for headphones. And we have put in adapters that adapt it to 1/8 inch. Again, stupidest design decision. I mean, I guess for instruments and stuff, it's not that stupid, but for what we're doing, it's stupid. Don't lose this jack, because if you do, you can't plug in your headphones and then you can't listen to what you're doing. Theoretically, you could still get your levels right just by monitoring the screen. But it's going to be difficult. You can't hear the actual quality, so you can't hear if you're pointed in the right direction or whatever. So just something to keep in mind. And once we get to the newer mixers, I will go over like plugging in microphones and everything, but this thing is just so god awful. And the principles apply to all these mixers in terms of plugging in and inputs and everything. So again, also make sure your tracks are armed. If you're not seeing those 4 circles right there, then go in and just make sure that those are turned on. Because if not, you won't be getting your individual tracks, and then you're kind of SOL, and you won't have that data. So,
Do you want to talk about polyphonic now, or do you want to wait?
we'll wait until the actual menu, because this one only does monophonic files, which means you'll record this, and then each track is its own WAV file, and so you'll have like 4 WAV files plus your mix. But otherwise, yeah, the rest of the stuff is just a lot of, I guess, quality of life features, which I will not go over right now because we're on a bit of a time crunch. But again, come in and ask questions if you're interested. And just turn this off, you just hold that again, and it should turn off maybe. Or maybe I'm just embarrassing myself. Oh, this is great. All right. How the fuck do you turn this thing off?
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. You probably already said this a couple times, but I had to turn this on at work. I'm leaving right now. What was an exact name of that sound mixer?
That's the Tascam DR680 Mark II.
That sounds good. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and we just went over the H4n Pro. That'll be up on YouTube, so you can watch that portion at a later date.
Got you. Sounds good. Where can I find it on YouTube exactly? Is there a
If you go to
channel?
Connect 2, have you been to Connect 2 yet?
I've not been to Connect to.
Okay, that's the Cage website. Here, let me try to pull up a link for you real quick that I can put in the chat.
All right. Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
Welcome. Yeah. You go to that site, you can log in with your CU Denver email, just like you would for your email. And then on the right, there should be, well, here, I'll share my screen real quick to help you out with that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I joined in kind of late. Do you mind just tell me your guys' names so I could probably just fill it out for some of my
This is
workshops or
Joey.
activities?
Joey Bramer. And my name's Ben.
Joey.
I'm the Cage
Nice to
manager.
meet you.
Nice to meet you too, man. My name's TJ. I'm a freshman.
Nice.
Nice. Well,
Yeah,
we'll definitely
so-
be seeing more of you. Are you able to
Exactly.
see my screen?
Yeah, no, I'm able to see it. Thank you.
Okay. If you go down here to useful links, there's a link to the Film Cage YouTube channel. And that'll take you right there. And all of the trainings we've done so far are up there.
All right. Yeah. That'll be very useful. Okay.
All right.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm gonna sit down for this because standing is actually too much work. All right, on to the fun ones. So the Zoom and the Tascam are kind of, is there a way we can,
You can rename it if you need to.
is it right here?
Yeah.
That's wacky. Okay. So the Zoom H4n and the Tascam are the two lower level mixers that you'll probably use in Prod 1 and 2. We have 4 of these, and this is called the Zoom F6, and we have 2 of another mixer called the Sound Devices. These are higher end. This has 6 channels on it, runs off of L batteries, which is the same thing as the NX100s.
Did we bring any?
Yeah, they have them here. I grabbed one.
You
Right.
grabbed one?
Yep. But the thing that this does that those other mixers don't, as well as the Sound Devices mixer, which I'll go over in a minute, is they record in 32-bit audio. Now, earlier I talked about 24-bit audio and the sample rate and everything. 24-bit was the industry standard for a long time, but recently they've come out with mixers that can record in 32-bit. And what that means is basically it's a logarithmic function that allows the dynamic range of a mixer to be increased a shitload. In layman's terms, it means this mixer cannot clip. The audio cannot distort from it. No matter how loud you shout into it or how loud the sound is, it literally cannot clip and distort. Which is nice because I always make this comparison for people, but like the Tascam DR680, I think had a dynamic range of 120 decibels or 140 decibels. This thing has a dynamic range of, I believe it's advertised around 1700 decibels. I'm not entirely sure that's accurate, but the loudest sound ever recorded on Earth was 210 decibels for reference. And there's a whole video online from Sound Devices where they record a car engine going off after spraying a squirt bottle. And it sounds crystal clear, even though it looks like it's clipped, just because you can bring it down in post, which is fantastic. And consider 32-bit audio to be a safety net of sorts when you're working with it. And again, 24-bit audio is still perfectly usable, but 32-bit's nice because basically a big old safety net. So if limiters aren't working or if you clip the mixer somehow, this can help to avoid that. So again, a bit more higher end, a lot more features on it as well. So again, first thing you're going to do when you get a mixer is you have your SD card slot right at the top here. And oh God, I didn't take it out of the middle. So yeah, you open that up, put an SD card in there. Maybe. Close it. And then you have an L battery mount right here. So these batteries that you've been using for pretty much all of the cameras or lights or whatever, not all of them, but most of them, it literally just sits down on here and then slides forward onto the two golden prongs you saw. And then once that's in there, all you do is buckle that up and then that'll run it for about a day, at least from what I've researched. So generally you grab 2 or 3 L batteries and then you go out and record with this. To turn this on, the power button's on the side, right up here, right where my finger is. You can't really see it, but right up here, you hold it down and it turns on. Yep, yeah, that little square right there.
Okay.
So this thing turns on and, oh my goodness. Okay, so you come up with this menu. And so first of all, again, go through the motions. Your menu button is going to be right here. And then all you do is scroll, I believe it's with the headphone. No, it's with these things. These arrows right here. You scroll down to system and then you hit this PFL button. Oh my God, we're zooming in. And it's, again, it's a pain in the ass to kind of show on camera, but you go down to the SD card right there, and then you just scroll down to format. And again, the best way, like this is kind of a brief overview, but the best way you're going to learn this is by coming in and playing with it yourself, which I guess holds true for everything, but this stuff more so because it's all in the menus. So once you've set that, then all you got to do is hit this menu button. That's basically a back button. You can back out and then you go up to record and God, it's all backwards. This is where you can see if it's going to show up. You can see how it says float 32-bit right there. That's your sample rate or your bit depth. That's your bit depth. You generally want to keep that on 32-bit with this mixer. Now, the only reason that you'd want to do 24-bit is if you don't feel confident in your mixing ability while doing it live. I was working a live stream shoot once and I kept it on 24-bit with the limiter because people would be talking and then they start laughing or getting loud. And it could sound jarring to turn that down on the fly. Plus also if you're booming at the same time, then it's harder to keep an eye on that. And so limiters can bring down the audio. With 32-bit, the limiters are turned off and you can't turn them on because in post you're able to bring it back down. But if you're not able to do post work, 32-bit is not as advantageous as 24-bit. because 24-bit has the limiters. So that's a little bit of a difference. Again, if you have questions, just let me know. Sample rate, same deal. This one goes up to 100. Oh, Jesus. This one goes up to 192 kilohertz, which again is not really that big a difference in terms of what you'll see in the end product. Mostly that affects what you set for your settings in Premiere, your pre-roll time, and your file size. Technically, sample rate is kind of like the detail of the sound in a way. Wow, this is just never gonna focus properly. Okay, fine, that works, whatever. Whatever, fine, good, I'm glad. Okay, so sample rate is basically your detail in your sound. Again, you said it 3 times, hopefully it makes sense. Your file format right there means the format that the files are gonna come out as. Now, on the 680, I mentioned monophonic files, which is basically each track has its own WAV file. So if you record 4 tracks, you'll have 4 WAV files, etc. With polyphonic, what it does is if you have 4 tracks, it'll compress them down into 1 WAV file. And then when you take that WAV file and put it into Premiere or Audition, it'll split it into however many tracks it is. So again, pretty straightforward. Polyphonic is just easier to, organize with.
Mm-hmm.
But you can always do monophonic if you want the separate WAV files for each track. It doesn't really matter in the end because it's going into a software anyway. Now metadata, this is the fun part. This is where it gets a lot easier to actually label stuff, and this is where you want to get into that habit. You can name the scene. If you go in here, set it to username, and then you can go to edit, and then you can actually name it like scene 1A or just 1A. It's kind of a pain in the ass to move around on this keyboard. It's all backwards. And then you have your note. So for notes, you could go and type the same thing like airplane noise or something. And then you can track names. So you just do track, like track 1, you could name boom mic, track 2, you can name lav mic, track 3, etc. Pretty straightforward, but these mixers, the 2 things we have them for are A, the 32-bit and the safety net, and then B, they're just so much more user-friendly in terms of inputting data. And so when you start to use these, you should get into the habit of actually inputting names and track names and all that. You should try with the 680, but again, that thing's such a piece of shit that it's not the biggest deal. But when you start to use these, definitely try and keep it as organized as you can because it just makes it so much easier to edit with afterwards.
I want to mention the reason why it's called the F6.
I mean, it's because 6 inputs?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Versus the DR680 only has 4.
DR680 only has 4 inputs. This thing has 6 XLR inputs. Now, goodness gracious. Something to notice, you can see the angle there, you can see one of the XLR inputs. The DR680, they're over here, I swear to God, you can see them, just barely. There you go. The DR680 had 1/4-inch inputs into the XLRs, which means you could plug in a guitar or an instrument into those inputs. You cannot do that with this. This only takes XLR cables. Now, with what we're using these for, that shouldn't matter, but if you're doing something music-based, for a film and you need to record a band or something, you cannot do that with this unless they're all using XLR cables, but you cannot use a 1/4-inch jack into this mixer. This mixer was $600, so they cut corners in places for some things, and that was one of the corners they cut. The sound devices can do that, and it's basically a step up from this. But again, just keep that in mind. Most likely you will not be using that here.
Might want to also mention that they make XLR to 1/4-inch cables.
They do make XLR to 1/4-inch cables. The thing with that is it's a balanced signal going to an unbalanced signal, and over a long distance that can become fuzzy and lose cohesion in terms of the signal. So that's something you generally kind of want to avoid. I mean, you can do it, but again, balanced signals, which is an XLR cable, I'll explain that later, is better than an unbalanced signal, which is literally just a 3.5 headphone jack or a 1/4-inch jack, anything with just the one plug. Okay, deep breath. All right, the next thing right here is the LNR track, and the LNR track, oh my gosh, real quick. This is an unbalanced cable, and it's literally any headphone jack is going to be an unbalanced cable, an aux cord, guitar cord, anything like that. Oh my gosh, what's up, Nate?
Hey guys,
What are you doing here?
Going.
going all right?
Oh my gosh, you
We're gonna
came.
take a brief break here. All right, we're back. Sorry about that.
Okay. So the LNR track right here, if you go back to the menu real quick, like the main menu, you see the LNR that's highlighted in red right there? That's your mix down. So again, any track like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 will get mixed to that as well as their individual tracks once they turn on. And so what that setting is in the menu, oh my God, so we're doing this backwards. For the love of goodness, you can actually turn it on and off if you want to record it, and then you can change the fader. So you can actually change how loud it is going out on those tracks specifically. Always consider your LNR tracks to be your mix tracks. They're called LNR, but it's mixing all the other tracks together. So they're basically a mixed track. At least that's how I think of it.
Mix down.
Mix down, basically, yeah. Again, you have your pre-record here. We're at 96 oh my God, I hit the wrong button. We're at 96 kilohertz, so it has a pre-record time of 3 seconds. If you're at 48, you can set it for 10 seconds. 192, I think, is 2 seconds. So the sample rate affects the pre-record time. That's everything for that. Again, I'll say it again, turn on the mixer, format your SD card, go in and check your record settings. And then once you've done that and the focus maybe comes back, unfreaking believable. Okay, we're good. Okay. And once the focus comes back, then you can go back to this menu and, well, actually, hold on. So technically with these mixers, now you're able to name the files. So you go into, oh my God. Wait. It's all backwards, bear with me. So you go down through those menus right there, and then you go to new folder. That's the up button. Oh my God, it's so weird doing this. New folder, you name the new folder. Let me do something real quick. I'm just gonna name it. Yeah, cool. Okay. So I just named a folder. I just named it H. And that's where all of your actual files are going to go now, except for your false take files, but that's not important. So when you go back, you'll see that you have your menu here. And so the first thing you're going to do when you get back to this menu after checking your record settings and setting your folder is turn on a channel, and you could tell a channel is armed on this because that light will turn red, and it will also turn red on the actual screen down here, channel 1. Now, the way the Zoom works is not exclusively gain knobs. These are actually always fader knobs unless you're working with 24-bit, in which case it's a different story, but you'll be working with 32, so it's okay. These are fader knobs, which basically means that it's changing the volume of the digital signal. Now, the way a mixer actually works is it takes the analog electrical signal from a microphone and converts it into a digital signal. And that's where the dynamic range comes in, because you can only convert a digital signal or an analog to digital signal that's so loud before the digital signal can't handle it anymore. That's the principle. I don't know if that was explained clearly, but whatever. What you have to know is that a fader adjusts the volume of a digital signal. Adjusting this fader right now is basically like adjusting volume in Audition. And it's not headphone volume, that's not the same thing. This is literally the volume of the track. The gain is preset in 32-bit mode, so you don't have to worry about it. Theoretically, you could let this sit and you could record a whole day to it. And then in post, you could just go back and normalize the audio and lay it out, and it would be totally good, totally usable. That's the whole selling point of this mixer, is you could just let it sit and record and everything would be fine. No audio lost. Now, you still want to do your best to hit -12 on the actual channel. And this is where I'm going to plug in a mic. I'm going to plug in the DD mic, and I'll walk through phantom power. But again, this is an XLR cable. It's got 3 pins. This is actually a good time to tangent real quick. So I talked about grounded and balanced versus unbalanced cables earlier, but you can see that this has 3 pins. One's a positive, one's a negative, one's a ground pin. With a headphone jack or a 1/4-inch jack, it has a positive and then a negative and ground wrapped into one. So there's 2 cables in here, but they end up in one splitter, or one jack, sorry. And basically, it's just less protection from radio frequency interference or electrical interference.
What he's talking about are these 2 different black pieces here. That's your positive and your negative. And if it has a third for a ground, you'll see a third one.
Even if it says that it has a ground in there, it's not really a balanced signal.
No.
You only get a balanced signal with XLR cords. And again, that's these 3 going to these 3. These can run for much longer distances and hold their signal for much longer than an unbalanced cord can. If you have questions about routing or what plugs into where, like if you ever live stream or anything, let me know. But all you got to know is that we generally use XLR cables. They're a balanced signal, which means they are able to last longer over a larger distance. And they're less prone to getting interrupted with static from electricity or something like that.
You could also mention the jacket that they put on it is waterproof.
True, it is a waterproof jacket. I mean, thank goodness, because you may be filming in the rain sometimes.
Yep.
But when you're ready to plug in your mic, it literally just plugs into the bottom here. And this holds true for every single mic we have. And then it plugs into the side of the Zoom right here. So channel 1's going to be right about here on the side to your left when you're looking at it. Or sorry, the farthest one up. So it's the front one here. That's my bad. Right there. Okay, you'll know it's in because it clicks. And exceeding maximum input level. Okay, who changed this? Okay, so it said exceeding maximum input level, most likely because I was trying to plug it in and it just wasn't playing around with it. Nice. So you can see that I'm getting levels right now. And so if I adjust the fader, so if I bring it all the way down, you see it's gone. If I bring it up, then it just keeps going up. And the line on the side, the one that says line, is your stereo out, which well, it says line out. It's that silver jack right there. And that's a 3.5 millimeter. You could plug in an aux cord into that. So that's basically your output. So if you want to run that to a computer or a Comtech or a radio or something to listen to in a different room, that's how you would do that. And so you can see the line output, you can see the LNR output. The line output does have the 0, it has the red line at the top because of the fact that it is not 32-bit, like it's not outputting in 32-bit. So if you cross that line, the audio will sound distorted and clippy. Again, it's recording 32-bit to the SD card, but it's not outputting that. If that makes sense, it's kind of hard to, it can be hard to visualize. Again, it takes some time to get your head around this stuff, but again, just something to keep in mind. And most likely you will not be using the line output for anything really, for a lot of things. That sentence made no freaking sense. Hold on. Most likely you will not be using line on your shoot unless your director is in another room and wants to listen to what you're recording, or you're trying to send your signal to a camera. Those are the only situations that I can think of right now off the top of my head that you would use line for. The rest of it, you can see your LNR and you can see your channel 1. Your LNR is always going to show you the loudest channel. So if channel 2 is louder than channel 1, then the LNR input will peak at whatever channel 2 is hitting, but they're both in there. They're both being mixed to LNR. Now, when you're recording like this, you're going to have actual track menus now, as opposed to figuring it all out through the menu on the 680. To go into your track menus, you have there it is, got it. You hit this PFL button, that's a theater term for something. But in here, you can see the new menu. This is for track one specifically. You have your source, you have your high pass filter and limiter, phase and delay, which is not important, your panning, and then your monitor, which again is not important.
If you want, I can explain what PFL is in layman's terms.
Sure, yeah, go ahead and explain what PFL means.
PFL in layman's terms means solo, which means you can check all of the settings on that particular channel. It's from the old days of soundboard mixers. It would say PFL instead of solo. I can't give you the exact term for the acronym, but that's what it means.
Oh yeah, also when you hit that PFL button, this light will glow yellow and it looks red right now. Well, it looks yellow right there. But once you hit PFL and you have this track menu up, that means you're listening to this track by itself rather than everything mixed together as you would on the other mixers. And the 680 has that function as well, the solo one. It's pretty straightforward on that one. I think it's labeled. But when you go into a track menu, this is how you listen to the individual tracks. So if you just want to hear the boom mic, then you just click the PFL button. To scroll through the tracks, you just click the PFL button more and it moves to different tracks. So a little bit of a pain to get around if you misclick, but that's how that works and that's how you solo things. So the most important part of this menu is that source right there. And so all you do is scroll down. There we go. And then, oh my goodness, it's like walking around in third person. This is where you're going to turn on phantom power for this mic specifically in this menu, your source menu. So you're always going to have mic or mic PH, stands for phantom power. You can have line and line PH for instruments again. And then USB, theoretically, you can plug in a desktop microphone into here, like a USB mic, and record that. You probably won't end up doing that, but the option is there. So for your boom mic, if you use the Deity, which you most likely will be using with this mixer, you got to set it to mic PH or else you're not going to get a signal. I'll demonstrate real quick. And then you just hit back and nothing, not getting anything, talking into the microphone. And there's nothing but sadness. Yeah, you feel me, yeah. I swear to God, this button thing is making me a little bit angry. Okay. I'll get it eventually and I'll have it all backwards. All right. Nope, there it is. Okay, so yeah, that pretty self-explanatory. Scroll down to the high pass filter and you'll see limiter is grayed out. Limiter will be on in 24-bit, but you probably won't be using that. So your high pass filter you can turn on. Same thing as the zoom and the Tascam. You just click in there and then you can scroll through frequencies up to, I think, 240 hertz on this mixer. And it'll just cut out those frequencies. So again, low rumbling of any kind, a fridge or something can help with that. Over here. Phase and delay is not important. Phase is a thing that you use when there's a bunch of other mixers and you're sending signals back and forth, and we will never use that here. Delay is if you're live streaming and you have, say, the camera is coming in like 30 milliseconds later than you, then you can put a delay on the sound and try and line that up. So that's what that's for. You have your pan, which you can pan the channel to the left or the right headphone. And then monitor is the PFL button just to monitor the actual channel. So that's all of the channel stuff. Also at the top there, you can see your track name. So that's something you change in the metadata settings. Let's see, all of these numbers here, that number on the top and the number on the bottom, those are called time code. We don't have any way to apply that at the moment in our cage. Theoretically, some of the cameras can output through an HDMI cord, but these mixers are built to run time code. And on a lot of professional sets, you'll see like the sound guy has some kind of time code setting for him. Time code makes it a lot easier to sync and post. All you do is set the numbers to each other and then the audio and the visual matches up. So the time code thing in here, you go in, You have a bunch of different modes, and the mode that you will most likely run is interior free run. If you don't have an actual cord to hook up a camera with this, which is running off of the actual date and time. You have your record run, which means that anytime you're recording, then the numbers go up, but after you stop recording, it doesn't. RTC, I'm not sure what that means, but
Running time code.
oh yeah, that's what it means. So yeah, that's something that you probably won't really learn about, but also,
I can have a few 2 cents about it. From an editor standpoint, when you're in Premiere, there's a few ways to sync up your audio. The one he just mentioned is the most common in the industry, which is time code. So what you'll see is you can match it up by the beginning time, the end time, the audio track, which actually has to go through and analyze the whole audio track. So if it's an hour-long clip, it's going to take a very long time. And the third one is time code. Time code basically is the exact frames and seconds and minutes and hours of your footage, which will match up with your sound recording. So those numbers line up perfectly, and it's an instantaneous thing for the computer to match that up. So if it's done correctly, you will literally save yourself an hour to several hours in post by syncing up your sound.
another thing that time code, so you won't encounter time code in this program a lot, mostly because we're just doing one camera shoots. But on multicam shoots is where it's used the most because it's a pain to have to sync to multiple cameras multiple times.
Yep.
So they all just sync up with time code all at once and then run it like that. The other thing is time code puts a frame rate and an actual timing onto the sound. Now, sound itself does not have a frame rate. And it's weird because some people I've encountered have had drift in Premiere with the sound in the video. I've heard that's from some DSLRs just not being great, but sound does not have a frame rate inherently. The time code is just something used to match up. So if you record in 60 FPS and you record in 24 FPS, that sound should still apply either way because it's still per second. It's still the sound running per second will still be the same. So if somebody ever mentions that or anything, sound does not have a frame rate. If there's any drift in Premiere, it's most likely the camera or your settings are off somehow.
Yes.
Your sample rate settings might be off. But something to keep in mind, that confused me for a while. So just back of your head.
That's all about your sequence settings and what frame rate your sequence is set to and what your footage is set to. Because if they're set to two different things, you will get drift in your sound.
That's pretty much everything for this mixer. I mean, again, you can link channels together. So actually, where is that? Let me find that real quick. Record. I'm not sure where this is. Oh, here it is. Okay. The other thing I forgot to go over, so there's a thing called input on that menu. So you have like record and input and system and all that. Under input, you can go in here to your PFL, and this is where you can actually edit your tracks as well. When I hit PFL on the default menu, it brought up the track menu. You can change all those settings by going into input on the other menu and going into through here. It's a pain. It's a backwards way to do it. Just click the PFL button when you're watching your levels. Much easier. You have your phantom settings. You can change between 48 and 24 volts or just turn it off completely. This should always be on 48 by default. But if something's wrong, go through there and check. Now, link settings is where you can link tracks together. And let me scroll down to that real quick. And so you have input link and trim link. But basically, the principle of these is, say you have two boom microphones and you want to record stereo. Now, you only record stereo for ambience, but you want to record stereo. So you have a boom mic in channel 1 and channel 2. Then you can link those channels together and you can get the same levels on each mic by only adjusting one channel. So anything you do to channel 1 would happen to channel 2. Oh my, nice voice crack, asshole. Anything that happens to channel 1 would happen to channel 2 and vice versa, however it's linked. So that's what that does. Again, you most likely will not be using that unless you're recording stereo ambience specifically, which is like something I've done. But on most film sets, you probably won't end up doing that. So that's there, just in case. Something to keep in mind. You have your auto mix feature here, which I have not tested it, but theoretically how it works is if you have two actors and they're talking to each other and they both have lavs on, what auto mix does is the one that isn't talking, it brings down their levels automatically. So that way it's not picking up the bleed from the other actor onto the microphone. And it just does that back and forth. Now, how well that works, I'm not sure, never tried it. Again, you only use that in an instance where you're trying to output a live stream or something, and it's super important and you don't want sound overlapping with each other. So most likely you won't use that either, but just something to keep in mind. Some of you might have learned this in LGS. Some of you might not have figured this out yet. You cannot use powered headphones when it comes to these mixers, at least not the crappy ones that you guys have been using. And this is because the signal that these headphones are outputting when they have electricity going through them is higher than what the mixer is supposed to output to it. It's a whole electrical thing, but basically don't use Beats headphones if they have like noise canceling electrical needs to be recharged stuff. What you want is over-ear headphones like this that don't have a charge, just studio headphones. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but earbuds as well are a big problem. Kids will complain about static in the mixer, and then they'll send in like 6 mixers and be like, it's broken. And I'm like, no, it's your headphones because they create static. So over-ear headphones, if it's not working, if it sounds super staticky and you've checked everything else, check your headphones because most likely it's because your headphones aren't compatible with what's going on. So something to keep in mind, again, powered headphones do not play well with other things that are outputting an electrical signal or digital signal, one of the two. So again, Audio-Technica, that's the brand I use. These aren't mine, but we have these as extras. But something to keep in mind, just the other day we had somebody bring in like 6 lavalier mics and be like, these aren't working. And they were working. There was just, someone wasn't using their headphones right. So just keep that in mind when you're going through. That's a huge thing that you learn real quick. What's next?
Do you have a suggestion for headphones?
I mean, Audio-Technica is what I use. So,
Is there a decent budget?
I mean, I have $150 headphones,
Okay,
but I assume those feel like $50 headphones,
these are about 40.
40 to 50, and those will work fine.
M20X. This is what I've been using.
Audio-Technica headphones are very good. Just make sure they're over the ear, studio kind of quality headphones. Preferably with a 3.5 millimeter jack or an aux cord jack.
Some of them will come with an adapter for 1/4 inch. You don't have to keep it, but sometimes it's nice if you're going to use a DR680.
Yeah.
So,
Which hopefully you'll not have to use that because it's not great, but being a freshman or a sophomore, most likely you will, unless we get more mixers, but that's a small chance. Okay, last mixer. So we only have 2 of these, but these are the best mixers we have. It's Sound Devices mixer. Sound Devices is kind of a name brand in the industry. And this is called the MixPre 6.2. And so this one runs off of USB-C power. So we actually have battery packs that we give out with this one.
grab that.
Thank you. Sweet. Yeah, so we have these batteries, and you can literally use a phone battery or any kind, just something that has a USB-C or a USB type A output, because the mixer just runs off of this, and it just sits in the front pocket right here, and then it plugs into the side. It looks a little bit cumbersome, and that's because it is, but it's fine. So
How long will it run on that battery?
generally a day, about. Just make sure you have some extras on hand. Always have extra stuff. Okay, so can I get your flashlight again? Okay, so right there, you can see the USB-C input, and then right above that is the power button, power switch. So you're just gonna plug this cord into the USB-C input. Now the nice thing with this mixer, and the Zoom can do it as well, but I like this one because it's more user-friendly, is that you could plug into a computer that way. I have my own version of this at home that's a bit bigger, and I plug it right into my computer every day, and it basically is plug and play. Computer can pick up whatever this thing is monitoring. Now this thing is all touchscreen except for a few exceptions. So real quick before we get into that, again, your SD card slot's going to be on the bottom of the bag. You have this little plastic thing which holds 4 AA's. That'll run it for about an hour at most. But you have your SD card slot right there. Is there one in here? Oh my God, there is. Cool. SD card slot's right there.
Can I see which one it is?
16 gigs.
Okay, that's a UCB. We'll take it out later.
Oh yeah, I think I put it in there for training yesterday. So yeah, SD card goes in there. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so you boot up. This is the first menu you have. So this is all touchscreen. So you tap up here. Oh God, that's so overblown. Hold up. Let me try. There we go.
A little bit to help you out.
Cool. All right. Turn down the brightness. So first thing you do when you get to this menu, again, you tap up here. It brings you up to the actual menus list. And you just tap in the middle here to scroll through it. First thing you're going to do is you're going to go to your SD card. You're going to tap Edit at the top here. You're going to go to Format. And you're going to hit OK. And it's going to erase and format the SD card. Now this mixer is really nice because you can hook your phone up to it and actually control a lot of things from it. The app itself is called, God, my phone's on the floor. The app itself is called Wingman.
Oh, hold on.
That's okay, I got it. I think I just hooked up. It's called Wingman, looks like that. Huge help. You can see all the arm tracks. You can see your levels when it starts recording. And I'll go over this more in a bit, but it helps you input metadata. On the Zoom, you can only use that tiny crappy screen, but on this one, you can actually type in the scene name, take name, all that with your phone, which is a game changer, honestly. It's huge. Oh my God, the menu's so much better now. Okay, so once you format your SD card, go down to record here. Ignore the LNR and then the LNR gain. That's, again, your mixed tracks, which you shouldn't be super worried about. You have your sample rate here, which you can go 44.1 up to 192 kilohertz. And I pressed the wrong button. And then you have your bit depth, which this one also runs on 32-bit. Pre-roll time, I believe, is 2 seconds at max. Oh, it's up to 3. And it's hard to do this backwards. You have your record trigger, which is basically if you hook up an HDMI cord from a camera or something, or an SDI cord, this could technically take that.
How would you input an HDMI into the mixer?
Micro HDMI.
Okay, so you just get an adapter?
No, you just get a micro HDMI cord.
Okay.
So you could do a record trigger from like an A7S2, and as soon as you hit record on that, it'll start recording on here. And your record bells is just a little beep when you hit the record button. That's what that is. Pre-roll time, again, pretty self-explanatory. After that, you're going to go to Project, going to go to New, and this is going to name the folder that it's going to put all the files that you'll eventually pull off the SD card. You can use the date, or you can use a custom name. And again, you have your project name. This is the only point where you're going to have to use the actual like onboard Lego tire wheel. So this keyboard is not a touchscreen keyboard because it's too small. So on this side, there's that little Lego tire, and that allows you to scroll through everything. And when you figure out what you want, so you want to name it like that XY, you just click in on the Lego tire, and then you just tap OK. And the project's created. And so you can verify that it's there just by tapping up here. If you tap up here, this is where you can actually edit the metadata if you don't want to use your phone. So scene name, take number, and then the notes. Again, pretty self-explanatory. And then your track names. I hit the wrong button. There it is. So yeah, like track 1 is boom, track 2 is lav. So once you have that set, another nice feature that this mixer has is tone. So you can turn this on and it'll run a continuous tone at -12 or whatever you set it to. This helps to adjust your headphone volume, which is nice because theoretically you could set your headphone volume to where it's comfortable at -12, and then you could listen for the difference in volume, and you could mix totally by ear as opposed to having to use this thing. I wouldn't recommend that because it's difficult, but again, it's just setting your headphone volume to a comfortable volume. As well as if you're running up through a camera, you can check the camera signal and if it's receiving that, or if you're outputting through the line output to a camera or to a radio, you can make sure that you're getting a signal. That's the use for that. It's pretty helpful, actually. Time code on this one, same deal as the Zoom F6. You have free run, record run, and then time of day. And then you can do time code through an aux port, which is technically what the Tentacle Sync does, but that's besides the point. And then jam and set time code is something that we may go over at a later time. And then frame rate, you'd match up the frame rate with the camera for your time code. Let's see. Inputs and outputs are not important. I mean, outputs is what you do for your stereo out, which the stereo out, again, is the same as the little silver jack that you saw in the Zoom. It basically just outputs the signal in a line signal, and you can adjust the gain for that. Inputs is your aux input and your USB input, so channels 5 and 6. This only has 4 XLR channels on it. It'll say 5 and 6. That means you can input an aux cable into here and do something. I'm not sure what you would do.
The other one, USB.
Yeah, so like desktop mic, but you can change the aux mode in. You will most likely not touch the inputs and outputs menus. Just something to keep in mind. You'll turn it on, you'll format your SD card, you'll check your record settings again. You'll make sure your metadata is put in properly. And then once you're done with all that, then you can start to go through the channels. So to do a channel, you just click in again. And as soon as you click in on one of these buttons here, it'll take you between the tracks. When it's glowing orange like that, it means that it's soloed, and that's the only one you're hearing. Then you have your mute, you have arm. Again, arming tracks is recording the track isolated out of the mix as its own thing. So instead of recording the boom and the lavs all in the left and right track, it'll record the boom as its own track, the lavs as its own track. The basic rule of thumb is to arm every track that has something on it. So if you have 3 tracks, a boom and 2 lavs, arm all 3 tracks. Easy thing to remember. You have your pan feature here, which you can do left and right headphones again. You have your low cut, high pass filter, which cuts out the frequencies. You have your input, which is mic, line, and then aux and USB. Again, your input's going to generally be mic unless you're doing instruments. You have your phantom power on this one. So if you're not getting a signal from like the Deity mic, which is most likely the one you'll take out when you rent this mixer, make sure your phantom power is on, or else you're not going to get any kind of signal. You also have your phase and delay. Phase, again, not important. Delay, something for a live stream. Then you have your linking, which same as it was on the Zoom, you can link 2 channels together and apply everything that way. As a bonus, you can technically name the track just by tapping up here, and you can rename it here. But the nice part, which I'm about to show if I can, cool. Oh, also this menu, you can tap here to change what you're seeing. So it will always default to the left and right. You just want to tap it once, and that will show you every single channel. You can see some are grayed out and some are red. If it's red, it's armed. If it's grayed out, it's not armed. If you're halfway through a take and realize it's not armed, go ahead and have them cut the take and rearm it, because you won't have that individual track for that take if it's not armed. If you connect your phone to it with the Wingman app, which is nice. Yeah. So this is where you can input all that data. And again, you could start recording from your phone. You could stop recording from your phone. Pretty straightforward. Again, record button here, stop here. False take button is right here. Now, what this does is if you have a false take, like you roll for 3 seconds and then cut on accident, you can press that and it'll put it into a separate folder. Oh my gosh, I have a new friend suggestion. You can put that into a separate folder, and that will I lost my train of thought. That will just put it in basically a trash takes kind of folder,
Mhm.
and it resets it. Down here, you have your file list, and this is where you can do all the metadata input. All you do is tap up at the top here, and then this is where you can rename everything. So much easier than doing it on the mixer is doing it on your phone. The app is free. If you're ever going to get this mixer, make sure you have this app with it because it just makes life easier. The other thing this does is you can create a sound report where you can fill out all of this info. So producer, director, all of this stuff. Then after you hit create report, it creates basically an Excel spreadsheet with all your data of the takes, the tracks, how long it is, what kind of sample rate and frame rate you used, what the name of everything is. And it is, oh my God, it's insanely helpful for the editor, like hugely. So when you get this mixer, the biggest quality of life improvement for it is being able to organize and input data so it's easy to edit with afterwards. Again, it's got the 32-bit, so something to keep in mind. One last thing about this mixer is you got this little asterisk button right here. As soon as it comes back in focus, if it ever does. There we go. This little button is a assignable button. So you'll see in the menu, not the headphone menu, not the headphone menu. Right here, you can see it says asterisk button. You can change what this one actually does. It's not the biggest deal though. It's pretty easy to run through the menus, but that's what that does, if you're wondering. Again, play and stop. I forgot to mention this on the mixers, but after you record a take, if you want to listen back to the most recent take, you just hit the play button and it should play it back on them for any of them. If you want to listen to a take earlier than that, you're going to have to go into the actual files and find it. For this one, all you have to do is just tap on the top here, and then you can just hit the play button on whichever one is highlighted. You could also technically go in and edit it if you just click in on the headphone knob, and you can rename it after the fact. Super helpful. But that's pretty much everything for the mixers. If there's any questions, again, feel free to reach out or ask them right now. But I hope I explained it well. We'll see.
Yeah, no, you seem like you know your stuff really well, so that's dope.
Nobody else does this. Go ahead.
That mixer is really dope. I'm just more curious, like, when's the soonest you have the opportunity to use it?
When's the soonest I personally or you as a class?
You know what, both.
Me personally? So I got real fed up with the crappy mixers that we had. And so after my freshman year, I went out and bought my own gear. And so I run my whole own thing.
Okay.
These mixers, we literally just got this semester. So they're pretty brand new. So, I mean, I'm not sure really, like, the way we're doing this now is you come in and you get certified on it and then you can rent it, but it's still kind of a seniority thing.
Okay.
Although I don't know if we're really enforcing that. I mean, if you care, you can come in and rent it and we'll most likely let you have it.
If you're going to be the next sound guy in the department, we can definitely talk and let you use it.
Hey, I'm all for that then.
Cool.
I don't have like any upcoming projects that, I plan on using anything for it. But hey, in terms of being next sound guy, that's why I'm here. So
Hell yeah.
this is great. This is very useful.
You're talking to the right guy then.
So
He's
yeah,
the
no,
only one that consistently does sound in the program.
Oh yeah.
I know, like he spoke for, like 90 minutes, just fluent in the audio. And I'm like, all right, yeah, blah, blah.
Okay. So there's still 4 more things I got to cover.
Okay.
And I think we have half an hour. Okay.
Yeah, we got half an hour.
Okay, next thing, proper booming technique. All the teachers are wrong about this. I'm just going to come out and say it now. I love Bateman. I love Jess. I love Tom. They're all fantastic. Oh my God, who Velcroed this in? But they're going to tell you to hold the boom pole like this or on your neck like this. And you can do this for very short amounts of time. But you'll want to try and boom from the chest like this, because if you're doing this, this will tear your rotator cuff over time. And it fucks up your shoulders and your back.
Not to mention it messes up all your arm muscles.
So, and they will tell you over and over again, like boom above your head, try and do this. That's not good. If you're actually going to do sound, that will tear you apart. So I'm booming from the chest. I rest my arms on my bag. I hold it from the side. If you can get the best angle you can without having to hold it over your head, then do that. There will be takes where you have to do this and you have to walk with them, but you shouldn't be doing the whole shoot like this because that will kill you. And it's hard. It's hard to do it for that long. So just something to keep in mind. Other teachers will tell you do it over your head, but don't. Try and boom from your chest as much as you can. And it's heavy. It gets heavy. So I don't know, do weight training, pick that up. I do it personally, and man, it still sucks to try and hold it over your head like this for more than 2 or 3 minutes.
Why don't you talk about the boom pole itself?
Okay, so boom poles are fragile. Start from the bottom, and it's weird with the way you twist and untwist this, but the main thing to keep in mind is when you tighten a boom pole, don't over tighten it. Everybody in this program has a thing for over tightening stuff. And the issue with boom poles is it will strip it, and then eventually it just won't lock in place, and it'll slide up and down.
And your mic will start spinning.
The mic will start spinning, but it'll just up and down. It won't hold itself, and then it's just unusable. And it does not take a lot to make sure this locks. It's literally just rotating that way. And then once it starts to hold itself, then you're good. You don't got to twist it down until it dies. I think the maximum reach on these is either 9 feet or 12 feet. I'm pretty sure it's 9 because there's a mini.
The mini is about 8 feet, so that's probably 10 or 12
Gracious.
for the real one.
Yeah. So the Deity mics come with their own boom poles that are carbon fiber and a better shock mount. We only have 4 of those, but when you're using these, again, proper boom technique, just boom from your chest and kind of work from there. And don't be afraid to ask on set, what's your frame? Where do you want me? What's the best way to do this? Because the quicker you can work around people and the faster you can figure out where you got to be, the easier it is for everyone.
Just to simulate it, if the webcam was our shot, what you'd want to do is come up out of frame and come down until you're in frame, and then you have about a 12-inch safety net, correct?
Yeah. And so the way you can do it, like I'm lazy. I'll admit it, I'm lazy. And so you can be out of frame like this, and you can just kind of hold it up about here and just
And
come
out
out
of
and
frame.
extend it.
There you go.
The other thing you can do is get an apple box or a chair or something and stand on that and elevate yourself, because then you don't have to hold it up. You can tilt it more down.
Mhm.
Buy an apple box. If you're going to actually do this, buy an apple box.
Do you own one?
I don't own one. I own a Pikachu camping chair, and I can't stand on that. Apple boxes are expensive. I mean,
They
they're
are
not,
expensive. Not terribly, though.
but if you do end up doing this on a student shoot, rent an Apple box. It's a huge help, especially for sitting. Sound guy always sits, because when you're doing sound, you have a harness on, whether it's the Zoom or the Mix Pre around your neck and back, or the 680 around your neck. It's just more weight, and you have a lot of stuff. I have a bag that is about 20 pounds that I have a full-on harness for, like a metal back plate and everything. And I clip my lavs on the front of that. I have everything in there, and I'm always trying to sit down whenever I can, because it just, you have everything with you. And so sound is probably the cheapest to get into in terms of the technical gear stuff. And then lighting and gaffing, and then camera are the most expensive. And sounds easy to kind of have a compact rig, but you got to be ready to stand. You got to be ready to work, which is kind of why no one does it. Because A, it's a lot of pressure. If you mess it up, everybody can hear you mess it up in post. Like, they'll notice it right away. And B, it sucks. You're standing there holding this pole with its harness on your body for 8 to 12 hours a day. So, but nobody else does it. So it's kind of a win. This boom pole, we have these crappy shock mounts. We have better shock mounts for the Deities, but the way these work, I'm sure you went over in LGS. You just kind of slide them through here, and they sit in between. The mic stays on here. Now, I mentioned that the Deity mics do not have phantom power built in. They run it from the mixer. Again, in LGS, I think they covered this, but these mics have the little switch here as the battery switch. You can see the, good God. You can see the light flashed red for a second. That just means the battery's on. It doesn't have to stay on. If you plug this into a mixer and you're not getting signal, something you might want to check is the battery, replace that, see if that's the reason.
Can that mic run off of phantom power?
This mic can run off of phantom power, but it saves battery on the mixer if it runs off its own battery.
Right.
And the mixers you'll be getting with this need all the battery they can get. So something to keep in mind. You have a dead cat, which again is basically a wind blocker, but these wind blockers are not great. Don't use this outside. If you're going to go outside, get a blimp. There are so many people that don't even know what the blimp is, which I'm going to break that out right now. And I don't think this gets covered in class, but this is a blimp, and it's basically a big old microphone case. The microphone slides in here, and then there's an XLR cord running out of the back here, down into the handle, and then there's a plug right there that you can actually plug your boom pole into. Not your boom pole. The XLR cord running from the mixer into here. You screw your boom pole into that, and then the cap goes back on. And I'll disassemble this thing in a minute. But this big thing, it's called a dead wombat. The dead cat is the smaller one, but it's a dead wombat. It slides over the top of this, and it can block wind up to 40 miles an hour in that area. I have a speech impediment today, unfreaking believable. If you ever shoot outside, take a blimp. Don't shoot outside without a blimp, because if there's any wind at all, you're going to hear it right in your mic, and it sounds terrible. So that's something to keep in mind. I'll put that together in a second. Oh my God, you put it up. Okay. This thing right behind me is a boom pole holder in a C-stand. Boom pole holder is literally this little black bit right here that's holding the pole. All it does is slide in a hole and tighten it. Then the boom pole just sits here. This is fantastic if you're going to do an interview, or if you're lazy and the only shot you need to get is a couple sitting on the couch or something. So either way.
Now, I would not do it in the gobo arm.
How would you do it? Just here?
Take the gobo arm out and put it in the grip head. Do you know why?
Why?
It's an extra level of safety.
Again, having sandbags helps with this. I have my own C-stand and boom pole holder, and I have done it in the gobo arm before. But there's always sandbags there, and I always have a PA kind of standing by. Oh, that's fine. But yeah, this is huge for interviews. If you're ever going to do an interview like in Cam Productions or Advanced Documentary, that's how you're going to do it, because standing there for 45 minutes holding it is, I mean, why work when you can not work and still get paid? It's great. Okay.
I think the correct answer is pay attention to your recording levels and not worry about the boom mic.
Exactly. Okay, two things. I don't know if they've gone over the law of mics. I think they have a little bit.
Teensy bit.
But they went over the audio technicals with some people, and those are dumb. The primary lav we have in the cage right now are these Sony UWP-D11s, I think.
That sounds right.
I don't know, they're like $500.
600.
Oh, 600 for these stupid things. Okay.
Yeah.
All of your cohorts, all of the idiots, literally every freaking person, well, bar like 10 people, don't know how to wrap these cords. These mics cost $120 a piece, I think, right?
Thereabouts. Some of them cost more than that.
The one that I have, Senken COS 11D, I think was $400 for a little microphone, not even the transmitters. This shit costs money. Don't, just be gentle with it. The biggest thing you can do with this gear is take your time and set it up gently. It's huge. It makes all the difference. Now, in these lav kits, you have your XLR input to 3.5 input, which plugs into the receiver here. Just on the top where it says output, this literally just plugs in and then it screws in a little bit. And then this is what plugs into your actual mixer to send the signal. Pretty straightforward. The transmitter is the smaller one, has one antenna, also has the mute feature. A transmitter will always have a mute feature, so that way talent can mute it if they need to go to the bathroom or something, and you don't have to worry about it. The mic just screws into the top here. There are no batteries in these.
Oh,
Do we have two?
yeah. I kept the ones from the R680.
Sweet. Okay. So Lavalier mics are basically you want to consider them a backup mic unless you're doing an extra wide shot, but generally,
And then you're still going to use a boom.
yeah. But yeah, consider lavs to be backup mics. Giving sweet. Just because boom mics will always have a better quality to them. If you buy a $1,000 lav and a $1,000 boom, the lav quality will not be as high because part of that money's going to the actual wireless system. Plus, there's also so much stuff that can go wrong. You can have interference, which I'll go over in a second when we talk about frequency. The lavalier mics can get broken or bent. They have their own batteries on them, which is a pain. They have a distance that they can reach before they start to cut in and out. And generally the mic quality is just not as good. Now they're meant for hiding under clothes, and I can go over laving. Actually, I'll go over laving techniques right now. Took me a couple years to figure a lot of these out. The main thing you're gonna run into is there's 3 types of wardrobe that you'll generally work with. There's normal shirts, there's dress shirts that are starchy shit, and then there's coats and stuff along those lines. And so the go-to area you want to put a mic is right on the small of someone's chest, whether it's a male or a female, it's the same difference. You want to try and have a pocket of air in there, just so there's not clothing rubbing. And there are these things called Rycoat overcovers. They're undercovers, but I like the overcovers because they have the wind blocker as well. I use that all the time, literally my go-to. But there's also Moleskin and Topstick and a bunch of other stuff that you can use. But sticking a lav in the small of the chest is the first place you want to try, unless it's super obvious. Other places that you can do it, well, when it comes to a button-up shirt of any kind, as long as it's not super loose, then right where that button is, you can stick it right underneath it. So you have your front part covering, and then you have the back part of the shirt on top of each other. You can literally stick this in right there, and it doesn't move. And I was on a shoot for National Geographic where we were following these employees around doing feeding a bunch of wild animals, and we were walking and moving. Couldn't hear a damn thing because it was one of those little, oh God, what's the name? Polo shirt.
Yeah.
It was a little polo shirt, and it had that button right there, and you just stick it right there, and it doesn't move. So any shirt with buttons makes it super easy. I didn't learn this until I looked it up myself 3 years in, so fuck me, I guess. But I mean, I'm sorry, Ben.
Say sorry to Rachel. She's going to have to cut it out.
Ah, Rachel, she's great. Okay, but yeah, small of your chest, button area. After that point, if that's not working, you're kind of, this is the fun part of the job where you kind of figure it out on your own. I had an actress who had a dress that had overalls. That was stupid. Tried it on the inside of the strap. Tried it behind her ear right here. You can actually tape it right here. And if the shot is at the right angle, you won't see it. You just got to experiment, figure it out. Sometimes you just can't win. Sometimes there's just too much rustle. The clothes are too starchy. They're just too crappy.
What do you do in those circumstances?
You boom it and you hope for the best. And you talk to the producer and the director and be like, okay, preferably in that circumstance, if it's a feature film, you've talked with the wardrobe department. You see what you're working with. Sometimes you can work stuff out. Sometimes you can't. If you show up on set and it's just fighting you and you can't get it right, you talk to the producer or the director and be like, listen, this wardrobe is crappy. I'm doing what I can. The boom should be fine, but just so you know, it will not sound great. Sometimes it's just out of your control. That same principle applies to if they pick a crappy location and there's sound going on. And you're hearing stuff. If you hear highway or you hear sirens or something, go ahead and pull them aside and be like, listen, there's this going on. Take a listen to it. See what you think. I can't control it.
Yeah.
Things you can control: HVAC, air conditioning, fridge, television. Make sure you go in. First thing you're going to do is listen and just see what's turned on and what isn't. And you're going to turn off as much as you can. If you have a radiator or a vent coming up through the floor that's still going, or even like a light if you have, what's the word for the thing on the light? The aperture light?
Oh, ballast.
Yeah, if you have a ballast on the floor that's putting out a lot of fan noise, we have sound blankets. And you can just toss one of those on top and it should, that's fine. It's literally just a heavy blanket.
Think of a moving blanket and you know exactly what you're looking for.
Exactly.
They're called Fernies.
So all you do is you just toss that on top and that can help with the sound. But your first job is to go in there, mitigate as much sound as you can, take a look at your talent, and just do what you can in terms of their wardrobe. The other thing when laving talent is to be approachable and friendly. If you walk up and you're like, I'm gonna stick this on you. I mean, that freaked me out. But what you do is be like, what's up? My name's Joey. I'm the sound guy for today. Have you ever had a mic on you before? And then answer yes or no. It's like, all right, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna place it wherever you decide to place it. And bear with me for a second and then just kind of talk to them as you go through it. And after that, you stick it on, make sure it works, do some sound checks, you're good to go. But again,
Question.
yeah, go
If
for it.
it's somebody of the opposite gender, do you let them do it with guidance?
It depends. You'd be like, would you like me to do this for you? Do you feel comfortable doing this on your own? Or get somebody of the same gender from another department to come help them?
There you go.
I've had that. I've had all three happen.
Okay.
I did a political ad a little while ago. And she's like, all right, there was no good spot to put it because she had a bit of a shirt that came down past the small of her chest.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had a jacket on and all I did was stick it on the inside right here, like right at this spot. And you couldn't see it, the whole ad. And it was literally on the edge and it sounded great.
Good.
So it's all about figuring out your situation. And laving is going to be the most challenging part. Boom mopping is pretty straightforward. You just hold it and you're trying to get the best angle. But back to the lavs, that's a little fun tangent. Again, any more questions, feel free to.
From there.
Okay, all right. So there's two things to know about these lavaliers once they're on. The receiver sets the frequency. The transmitter has a sensitivity option. Now, they're both different from each other, but I'll go over each. So I'm sure in LGS at some point, Nate or Jess or Tom or whoever it is went over how to set the frequencies on lavs. I don't know if this one specifically, but with this lav, all you do is you start from this menu here and you scroll to auto set. And on the sides of these specifically, there are two little black boxes right there. Those are infrared transmitters. So when you set the frequency with auto set, you have to hold these next to each other like that. And I'll show it in a second.
It's just like a PDA, if you know what that is.
So you hold down,
Probably too old.
you hold down auto set and it's all backwards. Yeah, you see it's blinking. You just hit yes and it'll scroll through. And then it says sync on this one. All you do is go over and hit set. And then the frequencies should be all synced up unless I goofed it a little bit. Let me check. Oh, it died. Okay. That's the principle. Do you have more batteries?
Yes. 688 up with batteries, didn't it?
I don't even know what it did. Okay. And you have auto set on your receiver. Just hold down the set button. Not that one. That's the wrong button. Okay, yeah. Just hold down the set button and it'll start blinking yes. And then you press it again with this held up right next to it. And they're backwards. What a pain in the ass to do this on camera. Okay, and I gotta hold it again. Cool. Set, scans, sync, and then yes, and then set. And now they're all matched up.
Do the G4s have that as well?
The G-Force have something similar, but they don't automatically sync. You have to do it yourself.
Okay.
So that's how you set the frequency on the receiver. There's also a different way. You can go through ClearScan. Scan GPO2. Okay. So you have auto set. You can also use this ClearScan feature, and it's literally the exact same thing. Not entirely sure what the difference is, but I've always used auto set when I use these, and there was not a problem. But if you use auto set, you get static, try clear scan. And if that doesn't work, then try it manually. But generally, first try, you should get it working.
What is the auto set counting for?
What do you mean?
Well, why would you use auto set?
Because it scrolls through and finds the cleanest frequency it can.
There you go.
Yep.
That's what I was hoping for.
Cool. The other thing to know about these lavs is there's this thing called attack. It says ATT on this menu right here. And if you hold down set, this basically adjusts the sensitivity of the lav. So this lav cannot handle somebody going from a whisper to a shout. It will actually clip in the lav before it gets sent to the mixer. So what this does is it adjusts the sensitivity of the lav itself. So the higher up, the lower the sensitivity. So if somebody's shouting, you want to set it generally 15, 18 decibels. But again, this is something that you'll experiment with yourself. But by default, it's generally set on 0. And you won't run into this a lot unless somebody's like actually screaming. I ran into it on a set that I was on a while ago called Feral, and that was my wake-up call. Those are the lavs. Again, I can go over them again later. Another thing that comes in the thing, another thing in the thing, okay. Another thing that comes with the Sony lavs is this thing called a hot shoe mount or a horseshoe mount. I don't know what people call it.
Hot shoe or cold shoe.
Hot shoe. The lavs clip onto the top here, like their actual, the receiver clips onto this bit, and then this slides onto the top of the camera. If you're doing an interview by yourself and you want to lav the talent and you want it right into the camera, then this is how you would hold the lav on there. Yeah. So the NX100 has this silver bit right here. All this thing does is it just slides in there, and then you can just tighten it with the ring right there. And the lav clips onto this.
And this clips on the back of here, right?
Yep.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, either one.
That's how you would get it onto there. There's a mic clip. You go right underneath the mic clip to get it to sit on top of the camera.
So easy way to plug directly into the camera. Let's see. Okay, that's the Sony lavs. And then we have 4 new lavs, which hopefully we will eventually get more of. We have these Sennheiser G4 lavs, which are in principle the same setup. These don't have batteries in them either, mother of goodness. No batteries in these either. I'm just stealing. Okay, so again, same principle. They look pretty similar, but you can tell transmitter has the mute switch right there. Receiver does not. It also has the AF out, which is audio frequency. AF and RF is audio and radio frequency, respectively, I believe. I know radio frequency. Again, you're going to set your actual frequency off of the receiver. So you're going to go to set right here. You'll see squelch. Squelch is changing some RF frequency stuff, which you shouldn't have to worry about. What you do is you go all the way to easy setup. You hit set, and you go up to scan new list. And it's going to take about 30 seconds to just scroll through the frequencies. So I'm going to let that do that. What else is there? I didn't go over the DR100, but I don't know. We have this, I think the Tascam Mark II, everybody knows about the Tascam DR100 Mark II. We have a Mark III version, which in essence is the same. But again, the Zoom H4n Pro is also on par with that, and we have 1 million of those. So most likely you will not be using those. Those Tascams were purchased in a moment of weakness. I assume our old cage manager was buying stuff. So once this finishes scrolling through the list, you can barely see it. It's almost there.
A lot of frequencies.
Yes, sir. So once it finishes scrolling through there, you see it says bank 1. You hit set, and then it'll say bank 1, channel 1. And you got to make sure you hit set after it shows up, or else it doesn't select the right channel. Then all you do to sync it up is you go onto this lav, the actual transmitter, you hit set as soon as it's and focus. And then you got a frequency preset, and then you just change that to whichever one the receiver says. And it's much easier to do than the Sony ones. It's just not as automated. There's also technically a sync feature on this, but I don't know, I've never felt the need to use it. So that's how you sync these up. This literally has a sensitivity menu on the transmitter, which is the same as the attack menu on the Sony Lavs, except that you lower it instead of raise it. So same principle. You have your sensitivity, you have your sequence or your frequency settings. That's pretty much all you got to know about the Lavs. There are a few more settings, but they're not important for what we're doing here. Unless you're in a place with a lot of radio frequency and whatnot. And then same thing that comes in this kit. You have your hot shoe mount and your XLR cords and your microphone.
Do you want to talk about gator clips?
What about them?
Just introduce them, how you would use them.
I've ever used a gator clip.
No? Always gone underneath the shirt?
Oh, gator. Oh my God. I thought you were talking about the big one.
No, the tiny ones.
Oh my goodness. All right. So I'm sure, hold on. Okay. I'm sure you've seen this before. It's literally just a lav clip. All it does is slide onto the bottom of the mic and go up. It depends on the mic though. This is for the Sennheiser one specifically. And then all you do is just clip it to, it's meant to be clipped to the inside.
Or a
Yeah, something like this or a tie or something. If you're doing an interview and the talent or the director doesn't care about seeing the mic, this is the way to do it.
documentaries.
Documentaries as well.
Yeah.
But for the most part, another tip is if you are laving talent and they're not used to being on film, such as like a corporate person or something like that, you kind of want to stay away from trying to touch their skin and put stuff on their skin.
Mm-hmm.
So the way to do that would be like front of their collar, inside of their tie, in between their shirt.
Mm-hmm.
But unless it's somebody who's familiar with film or is super comfortable around you, try and avoid putting it on their chest and just figure out different ways. In those situations, though, it's generally either commercials, documentaries, or something that isn't necessary to super hide the lav. So I was on a set where I saw a sound guy just put it on the inside of somebody's collar right here and just ran it through that. But if they're not familiar with film, if they're not comfortable, try and avoid skin as much as you can and just figure out a different way to do it. I think that's pretty much everything. I just want to go over the blimp real quick. This is probably one of the most breakable things we have in the cage because it's all plastic and it's not very strong plastic. This wheel right here allows you to move this actual handle up and down the track that it has in here. This silver handle is what you use to loosen it, and then you tighten it back up so the handle stays, and you can change how tight it is with this knob. Now, there will be dumbasses who try and move this without untightening this, and you can do it, but it'll eventually break because there will just be no more friction holding it. These two bits right here, front and back, this is how you get this actual blimp case off, I guess is what you would call it. I'm gonna untighten it a bit more, I think.
Both of them.
But it's already untightened. Unfreaking believable. Just slides off like that. And this is the shock mount where the mic sits. So pretty straightforward. And then when you're done, it just slides back on. These end caps also just kind of slide back on.
Just in case they do it, you want to show on the end piece there that comes out of the boom?
This bit?
Yeah, pop that cap off.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so this part, this is actually an XLR cord. This is what plugs into your mic, but this bit can actually sit in this little rubber mount and make sure it's in the rubber mount. And then you can actually get the cap on without any interference.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. And then the Dead Wombat. This thing actually has a tightener on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's got this little bit here. So make sure that's fully loose before you try and put this on. Because when you put this on, it's going to be kind of fighting you. And all you do is you just slide it in like that and then pull it back and over. And then it just sits on there. And that's pretty much all you got to do. Is there anything else? I mean, that's pretty much everything. One more thing. This is called a pistol grip. And all the mics, like the shock mounts, you can just screw into this. If you just need to point at something and just get ambient noise or something like that, this is what you can use. It's literally just a thing with a screw, and it just screws on. All of the mounts and the boom poles and the pistol grips and the blimps and everything should have the same screw for a shock mount, which I think is like 5/8?
3/8.
3/8,
And then 1/4 is the other one.
exactly.
They're the same as cameras,
Yeah.
which is why you can adapt them.
Oh, do you? I think that's everything.
Why don't you show them this task cam just for the sake of it?
Task him. If it's not charged, then we're done. If it doesn't boot up, then on your life. So this looks very similar to the DR100 Mark II. Oh my God, I should have slept more last night. Stayed up playing the new Pokemon DLC all night. It was great. Phantom power is on. So as you can see, it's clearer menus, better dynamic range. Oh my God, this is going to take another 20 minutes to go over. Again, basic principles. Oh, I forgot to mention the basic
It's
principles.
12 o'clock, so you can just mention it.
With-
Mention what's different about it.
I mean, the menuing is the different part, pretty much. It's always going to be the different part, and that's the biggest thing when you want to do a new mixer, is just come in and learn the menuing. Let's see.
How much better of dynamic range does it have than the other one?
I mean, much better. I don't know the numbers for this, but
Okay.
huge difference. This thing can do quite a few different things, which is nice. It can dual record, it can do limiters. The other thing to add into your workflow, I forgot to mention it, is make sure that your file type is mono. Each mixer will have like an input. It's generally going to be in your input or your record settings. But just make sure you're recording a mono file, because if it's not mono, then it's just a royal pain. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, your workflow for your mixer is turn it on, format your SD card, check your record settings, which is bit depth, sample rate, and then mono versus stereo. And after that, go in, set your metadata, make sure all your tracks are set the way you want it, armed properly, whatnot, and then lob the talent and do what you got to do. I mean, that's pretty much it.
TJ, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I don't want to hold you too far past 12,
you're
but
good.
appreciate it. I am curious because as someone who does like want to purchase more tech, you know, just for the sake of it, of having your own things with you and convenience. I forget what type of boom mic UCD has, because I'm debating whether I should get an NTG2 or 4.
I would not recommend the NTG2. I've heard bad news.
Ooh.
I have an
I
NTG.
own it. It's not that bad, but
I mean, compared to other stuff, I have an NTG4 Plus, and then I have a Sennheiser MKH416. And I like my 4 Plus. I have that plugged in as my desktop mic right now. But that's a good one. Again, the Deity S mic, I would also recommend. Same price range-ish, but it's close in sound and frequency. Excuse me. Frequency pattern to the Sennheiser, which is why we have it.
It's also about half the price,
I think it's $400-ish.
$430.
Okay, and that's what you would recommend for, I don't know, I'd say, I guess beginner is the best word for it, for someone who's like slowly getting into purchasing their own audio and equipment.
I
I
mean,
would start to go towards Sennheiser. Unfortunately, a lot of people, unless you run your own one-man band, they don't seem to like Rode for some reason. But honestly, they have the same quality as Sennheiser. It's just a matter of who you're working with.
Okay.
What I will say, what we have in the cage, just so you know, we have Sennheiser ME66s, which is like the very bottom tier Sennheiser. And then we have a Sony, I can't name the name of it,
EDW something.
298 or something.
I don't know.
It's a mid-level mic. It's only like $200-300. And then the Deity's up here on the scale of what's good and what's not good. Deity's what I would be using if I was shooting a cinema thesis. If you're shooting a freshman project, the Sennheiser works fine to learn it. The problem is it's not as robust and it doesn't have the same frequency pickup pattern as the newer mics.
If I were you, I would familiarize yourself with the gear we have here and see what you like and don't like.
Okay.
And then like sophomore, junior year, because I don't know how much you guys are going to be shooting this semester, because I know you have your prod ones, but I'd try the gear here first and get used to that and see if there's a specific brand you like or stuff like that, because it's nice to be able to experiment before investing. Like that's what I did, is I just dicked around with everything for about a year. And then,
That was also what I was going to mention when you mentioned the Sennheiser or the Mix Pre. Is it's a great mixer. It's very intuitive. You could pick it up right off the bat, but you could also start with the Tascams, see what you like about them, see what you hate about them.
okay, not
Have a
Tascam.
lot of
Tascam bad. Do Zoom or
cons.
Zoom or sound devices.
Yes. So
Zoom or sound devices.
I would start with the H4n, and then I would work your way up to the Mix Pre. So I would start with this because it only has 2 channels, so there's not as many things that can go wrong with it. Then I would go to the F6 because it's got a decent menu that's much more intuitive, and it can handle 6-channel input. Then I would go to the Mix Pre.
So
Mix Pre has enough of the high-end settings that you're gonna like over time.
My track was I got the H4n Pro after I got a Tascam. Figured out Tascam is actually not great. And then Zoom released their F6. I ended up getting the Sound Devices Mix Pre 10.2, which is cost some money.
Oh, yeah.
But if the Zoom F6 is probably like a go-to on your list. It's about $600. It's got 6 channels. If you buy a Bluetooth adapter, you can use your phone with it. So that's a good one to look at, but definitely familiarize yourself with everything we have in here first before making a decision, because everything else is going to be over $1,000 for a mixer.
Yep.
All right. Sounds good. Hey, that was more than I expected, so I appreciate it. This has been it was a great Zoom. So
What I will say is, he's right, Tascam is not intuitive. I own a Tascam. It's called the 60D Mark II. The only reason I have it is because 32-bit audio didn't exist yet. So what it does is records dual mono.
It technically
So I have a
existed.
backup track.
It technically-
existed, I just couldn't afford it.
Well, it wasn't.
Right.
It technically existed for computers and for digital audio stuff, but it was not able to be recorded with.
Yes. So I bought that because it was about $200. I still have it, and I have an NTG 2. And
NTG 4 Plus is a good one. I have a friend who
3. How much is the 3?
3 is $1,000. I don't
Okay,
think
I
you know.
don't own that one.
I would go with the 4 or the 4 Plus because I have a friend who has that. I have that. I mean, you can't go wrong with it. It's got onboard phantom power.
Right, and that's what the 2 has, is it's phantom power or battery power. The one he's talking about is phantom power.
Well, the NTG 4 Plus has a rechargeable like battery. You
Really?
can plug a micro USB Type B into the bottom of it.
Okay, that's
Huh?
nice to know.
So that's an option. Easy
What
to
I will
use.
say is phantom powered mics generally have a better pickup pattern than a battery powered mic.
This is true.
So
Is
if
it?
you
I
can
don't
get phantom, it's better in general.
know. Either way. But if you get a phantom powered mic, you have to have a mixer that
Yes.
can back it up.
Or a camera that can let you use phantom power, which is hard to get at a low price point.
If you want to send me an email or come into the cage at some point, I'd be happy to discuss more details with you.
yeah, no, yeah, for sure. I'd always be willing to learn more. What's your email if you don't mind?
Joey.Brent, let me put it in chat real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And I got the information about the Zoom was pretty helpful. Like, you guys recommended the Zoom instead of the Tascam.
Yes.
Cool. Cool.
Tascam was doing decently, but they just haven't had anything new. And I think they're more of a music thing.
In a lot of ways, yes, they are.
Technically, the Zoom H4n Pro is a music recorder because you'll find that when you're using it, you're bumping up the gain pretty high to record good dialogue. But it's a good substitute for now, at least.
All right, sounds good. And I got your email. Joey, I'm probably going to be more free when we get closer to the break because get all this homework done.
Oh yeah.
But it was great to meet you. It's Ben and Joey, right?
Yep.
Talking to you. Sounds good. Thank you
There are
guys.
quite a few
Appreciate
other
it.
cage workers in the cage that you'll meet. There's about 4 others, but I'm always here. He's always here. So,
All right, sounds good. Maybe I'll see you guys around.
Sounds
All right.
good. Talk to you later, dude.
Yeah, talk to you later, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.